Good morning, everybody. Yeah, well, if it's morning when you're watching this, I guess you can watch this in the middle of the night if you wanted to. So I'm just going to record a quick video explaining what supply and demand is. This should be basically your second lesson for economics. Supply and demand is one of the just like foundational ideas in economics, and it's super important. And luckily for us, it's pretty easy to understand. So let me just go through it real quick. And I bet some of you, a lot of you, maybe all of you, have heard of supply and demand before. So what supply means is just how much of something we have. It could be how many bananas we have, how many MacBooks we have, how many Android phones, how many chairs, how many tables, how many rapid COVID tests. It could be any product out there. Demand is how much that product is actually wanted. So like right now, the rapid COVID tests are in high demand because we got this Omicron surge. Everyone's trying to test themselves. So we have a real high demand, but not necessarily supply to meet that demand. So we'll talk about that in a moment. This is a quick little video that I'm going to recommend you watch at some point today because it summarizes what supply and demand is in a nice, simple fashion. But if we have something where we have a high supply but a low demand for it, the prices for that thing should be cheap. Because if you think of bananas, if we have just a boatload of bananas, there's not that many people that want bananas. If the banana seller wants to actually sell those bananas, he's going to have to lower the prices to be pretty cheap. Otherwise, just people aren't going to buy them. If it's the opposite, if there's low supply and high demand, kind of like with these rapid COVID tests, perfect example, its odds are it could be pretty darn expensive because there's a lot of people that want it. There's not a lot of it to go around. So normally the sellers and producers of all the products we use, they try to find some kind of a balance in the middle. So with Yeezy shoes, I know it's Kanye's shoes. I personally think they're really stupid looking, but I know a lot of people want them. But there is a high demand for them. They're popular. And Kanye isn't going to have like 100 million pairs of these things made because then you're going to have a high supply and the price will go down. So he keeps a smaller amount made so that it's low supply, high demand, so that they seem rare and special. And then he can charge $400 a pair or whatever outrageous price it is. Another fun little thing. Fads can be a great example of ways that supply and demand can be affected. So I remember when I was young, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years old. But this toy right here, Tickle Me Elmo, just became all of a sudden just every kid in America wanted it for Christmas or for their birthday or whatever. And it's just a little Elmo doll about that big, and if you squeeze its belly, it wiggles and goes, "Ah, that tickles!" But every kid wanted it. So there was a huge demand for these things, and the supply did not meet that demand, which meant people were buying as many of them as they could, and then they would resell them online. I actually pulled up a newspaper ad for ones that were for sale. They're about 20, 25 bucks in the store. People selling them for $300, $250, $1,000, $800 because they knew there would be some people that'd be desperate enough that they would pay those prices. A couple other ones. I know Hatchimals was a big, important fad toy a couple years ago. And I know my brother-in-law wanted to get one for his daughter, and he had to search everywhere and pay normally more money than he normally would have. Beanie Babies were a huge fad. Maybe you guys have heard about those. I was obsessed with Beanie Babies when I was a kid. Another easy example of supply and demand is looking at gas prices. So if there's a high demand for gasoline, the price is going to go up. If there's not a lot of demand, price is going to go down. So like when the world kind of went into COVID lockdown, people were staying home. They weren't driving to work. They weren't driving on vacations and stuff like that. So the demand for gasoline went way, way, way down. And so the prices went way down because we weren't burning as much gasoline. Typically, gas is cheapest in the winter. People don't do as much. They kind of stay at home more. And then it gets more expensive in spring and summer because there's a higher demand. People are burning gasoline to go out with friends, to go on vacations and road trips and stuff like that. So whenever you see the cost of gas changing up or down, which it is right now, it's all because supply and demand are not in balance. Some modern examples of that we have seen in the last couple of years. COVID has created several. Back in 2020, we had this crazy rush to buy toilet paper. Some people were going out and just buying up every single roll that they could. So the demand was really high, and our supply wasn't quite meeting it. So some places were charging, as you can see here, like $10 per roll of toilet paper. That was rare, but people could take advantage of it like that. Another one was hand sanitizer when everyone was really scared at the beginning of the pandemic and didn't really know what was going on. It was really hard to find hand sanitizer. Some people were buying it all up and then they would sell it back online. So here's 2 bottles for $350. Normally in a store, 2 bottles of that size would cost, I don't know, $5 or $6. So people were kind of taking advantage of the situation, taking advantage of supply and demand to make some money. I don't think that's illegal in this case, but it's certainly like not really a nice thing to do. And that's called price gouging, when you charge extremely high prices when demand is high and supply is low. Again, not seen as a very cool thing to do, but it happens. Other seasonal changes to supply and demand, like swimsuits. Probably not going to be selling a lot of bikinis in the middle of winter, but come spring and summertime, stores definitely will. Pumpkins. If you think about when there's going to be a high demand for pumpkins, it's definitely going to be a little bit right before Halloween, because that's when everyone buys them to carve jack-o'-lanterns. Cloth face masks, or paper ones like these. These were not in high demand up until this pandemic hit. Before that, it was for the most part just people in hospitals that would wear these. Now the demand is through the roof. Supply wasn't on par with demand, but it's caught up now, so it's pretty easy to find masks these days. Ice cream, another example. Not a huge demand for it in the wintertime, but in the summertime, there definitely is. People prefer eating ice cream when it's 90 degrees outside compared to when it's 9 degrees outside. So there is a little supply and demand assignment you're going to be doing today, and it focuses around pumpkins. So you're going to have to do some graph reading and a little bit of math. No, this is a math class, but you guys can handle it. But you will find it in the supply and demand folder. Good luck.